The entire quarterback room was completely turned upside down when Shedeur Sanders arrived at camp. 5 touchdowns, 15 for 17, total mayhem. The same people who had been making fun of him now became quite silent. What would happen if Shedeur continued to play in this manner? After such a performance, are the Browns really going to keep him on the bench? Because notice was just given to the entire quarterback room. And believe me, this situation was made even more bizarre by what transpired behind the scenes. Let's examine what actually transpired. When they hear an NFL press conference, the majority of fans assume it's just safe talking points and dull responses. Incorrect. The real fight begins there. These guys at the front desk don't just talk. Every word is prearranged. Each sentence has a purpose. They are very clear about who they want to defend and who they want to commend.
Take another step and keep growing and learning. I think he's had a really nice offseason. He did a really nice job at voluntary minicamp. I think his improvements in decision-making and pocket management by the end of the year, and certainly what we've seen so far in a very short spring, have been positive. And I expect him to have more command of the offense and better ball security and situational awareness as we go into year 2.
I think you see playmaking ability. I think you see a player that is confident in his skill set. So when you see that playmaking ability and inner confidence, you say, okay, there's something to work with there. So that, I think that's the thing that excites you. I said it this morning that 15 or 20 years ago, they would have said that Shedeur Sanders was athletic.
And without ever saying it out loud, Andrew Berry simply revealed the whole Browns quarterback predicament. You could sense it right away if you paid close attention to that press conference. When Shedeur was mentioned, the atmosphere changed. Berry wasn't providing those phony, robotic responses that teams employ when they have doubts about a young quarterback. We'll see what happens with the energy. He didn't have any potential to talk about this. Berry sounded assured, at ease, and almost relieved. He began discussing how Shedeur was getting better in all the important areas: smarter choices, improved pocket control, football protection, quicker field reading, and then the shocking revelation. Shedeur is gaining more command of the offense, he stated. That word is very important. For a backup that they are still experimenting with, teams do not use the word command. The person in charge of the team, the person they trust, and the person the locker room is beginning to follow are all referred to by that term. Everything changed at that point. Fans of the Browns heard hope. However, once a front office begins discussing command, the competition is essentially over, and everyone in that building knows it. So the rest of the quarterback room most likely heard danger. At this point, Deshaun Watson's situation became extremely violent, as the reporters provided Andrew Berry with the ideal opportunity to defend him. They essentially gave him a simple justification. Berry only needed to mention that Watson has a significant advantage due to his experience. Easy, straightforward, secure response. Watson has participated in important games. Watson has participated in Pro Bowls. Watson has played in the league for many years. The majority of general managers would use that right away to safeguard their seasoned quarterback. It wasn't Berry, not even near. Rather, he silenced the entire discussion about Watson. He basically stated, experience is nice, but it does not automatically put anybody ahead in the competition. Look past the obvious. For Watson, that is a disaster. This group sacrificed everything for him. The general manager is now standing at the podium, acting as though Watson's resume does not even distinguish him from a quarterback with hardly any NFL starts. Despite the fact that Watson has a huge contract, fully guaranteed money, draft picks thrown out the window, and constant media defense. That's crazy. You wouldn't speak that way about a player you still have complete faith in. You simply don't. Berry had every opportunity to give Watts a lifeline, but he declined. Professional tone and calm voice, but the message was chilly, extremely cold. Watson is no longer being treated like the future by the Browns. He is being handled as if he were a problem that they are gradually getting rid of. To be honest, this is the reason why everything in Cleveland seems to have changed all of a sudden. The media continues to portray this as a wide-open quarterback competition. That is no longer how it feels. Not following that press conference. Not after Barry's comparison of Shedeur to Watson. Where the excitement was, you could hear it. Where the energy was, you could hear it. A quarterback received specific compliments regarding his leadership and development. The other received corporate responses that lacked emotion. You can learn everything from that. NFL executives are cautious because they are aware that every word is scrutinized. Therefore, it is not coincidental when someone with Andrew Berry's level of calculation begins to speak so confidently about a young quarterback. It is organized. It's deliberate. The most absurd aspect is that, even though the public is still debating this race online, the Browns may already be aware that it is over. This is the reason why everything feels so explosive at the moment. The change is noticeable to the fan base. It's probably felt in the locker room as well. When Shedeur arrived in Cleveland, he was met with ridicule, skepticism, and accusations of being overhyped. The same individuals are now witnessing the organization carefully give him the keys in front of everyone. It's also possible that Andrew Berry hasn't formally named him the starter yet. However, he really didn't need to after that press conference. Yes, talent will always be added to the most critical position. That's the end of it, I suppose. It doesn't matter who is present. We will add a quarterback if we find one that suits us and is available at a reasonable price. Having said that, the three guys have performed admirably thus far this spring. We're fortunate to have 3 days on the grass, They're all picking up the offense fast, correcting their errors and throwing the ball accurately. However, that wouldn't stop us from adding a player we like tomorrow. There is a significant difference between Barry's discussion of Shedeur and his discussion of Deshaun Watson. It is enormous. Deep analysis is not necessary to recognize it. It is directly in front of everyone. One quarterback had genuine enthusiasm, genuine attention to detail, genuine faith, and words like growth, command, and trust is already building. The other quarterback received very little. Just be mindful of his history. Nothing more than a reminder that he has a career. When two players are genuinely on an equal footing in a real battle for the same job, that is not how you speak. When one side is already winning and the public hasn't yet come to terms with it, that's how you talk about it. The team's confusion was not what you heard. It was very clear, quiet, and under control. There's no point in using tactful language, so let's be honest about the Watson situation. The contract is enormous, among the largest in NFL history. Money is fully guaranteed. Sitting directly in front of them is a massive cap hit. He cannot simply be cut by the Browns. They can't simply leave without making a payment. He remains on the roster as a result. He remains inside the structure. He continues to be paid. However, this does not imply that he maintains command of the offense. And that's where it gets chilly. Barry did not even pretend that Watson's experience gave him a genuine advantage when he stood in front of the media. It's a huge deal. They once sacrificed everything for this player. Hope, money, picks, all of it. The tone has now changed to something very straightforward. He is present, but by default, he is not the solution. The message is that, just a calm reset of expectations. No drama, no rage. Watson is no longer shielded by his past. How they assess him on the field is unaffected by his contract. And it's a harsh place to be when it comes to football. It becomes even more clear when you look at the third section of this image. Barry had an entirely different perspective on the young quarterback Talon Green. There was only a slow plan, no hype, no pressure, and no excitement. Learn first, then develop, and then perhaps engage and play. That's it. Simply teach him to speak slowly. That's not a good place to start. That's not talk of competition. That's project talk. And the contrast between that and his remarks about Shedeur is striking. One player is being developed for the offense's future. They're telling the other to take his time. Furthermore, anyone who is still attempting to describe this as a straightforward three-way quarterback contest is misinterpreting the circumstances. The language is completely at odds with that narrative. Barry claimed that not everyone was treated equally. Separation was the cause. Calm, regulated separation. You can't unhear it once you've heard it clearly. He is no longer a mobile quarterback because of how drastically the game has changed. He's mobile? No. He simply isn't as mobile as we are now. We've reached a point where Lamar Jackson's speed and these players' ability to escape have completely changed from earlier times. However, I believe those aspects are what you see on tape. A young player who was not raised in a professional-style offense. He is not to blame. That's all right. I was in Oklahoma. He was drafted to state with Brandon Weedman during an air raid. That was not his upbringing. During that press conference, Barry did not treat every quarterback equally. Not even near. That was clear. Green was discussed as a late pick who still needs time. Easy steps, take your time, learn the system first, and don't rush or put any pressure on yourself. For a rookie in the 6th round, that is typical. That doesn't surprise anyone. However, the tone in which Shedeur was discussed was entirely different. It wasn't a wait-and-see conversation. That wasn't, he might start talking one day. That sounded like a player currently being shaped for a real role. On Sundays, words like growth and command are important. It's starter language. It's not backup talk. Therefore, those who attempt to claim that everyone is fighting for the same cause are missing the mark. The room was already divided by the language itself. There is one quarterback on a development track. The other is being talked about as though he is already on the verge of leading the offense. That isn't an opinion. That's what was stated. Barry then went one step further and clarified a crucial point. There won't be equal representation. Everything is altered just by that. Everyone is not given the same opportunity every day in this unfair split. The load is determined by performance. Attention is determined by performance. The direction is determined by performance. Additionally, he stated that if they are successful, they hope to have at least 3 quarterbacks on the roster. The final section is crucial. The phrase, "if they earn," is not informal. It serves as a caution. No one is secure. Just because someone is currently on the roster does not guarantee them anything. However, the underlying truth was still apparent despite that competitive framing. You can talk about competition all you want, but the room structure is already taking shape when one quarterback receives in-depth praise while another receives only basic development talk. The public message remains uncluttered. It remains fair, but anyone who is paying attention can already see the internal picture taking shape. Now take a step back and consider the true implications for Cleveland's future. There was more to this press conference than just preseason battles and practice reps. It had to do with direction. Money, history, and the fear of owning up to a mistake kept the Watson situation alive for a very long time. To be honest, that is the reality. The contract is enormous. The cost of the trade was enormous. Teams find it difficult to abandon such a choice. Thus, they persevere. They're hoping it improves. They safeguard the notion that it is effective. However, football doesn't give a damn about past payments. What works now is all that matters to it. Barry's remarks also sounded like a departure from that outdated way of thinking. Less focus on the intended outcome and less attachment to the investment. More attention should be paid to what is truly taking place on the field right now. Shedeur comes into play at this point. Perhaps not as a future, but as a practical choice that the company is obviously more at ease discussing. Here, that's the true shift. Cleveland is gradually moving away from the burden of the past and in a new direction. And neither a headline nor a rumor is the most obvious indication of that change. When all 3 quarterbacks were present at the table, it was the general manager's choice of words. There was no dramatic reveal, no big shout, and no headline moment. It came from Andrew Barry's cool, collected words. The language a general manager employs when he already knows the solution. He simply doesn't have to say it aloud. It wasn't just any press conference. It had nothing to do with what was going on in Cleveland. It fit into a larger plan that has been gradually developed over several months. The roster changes show it. The draft selections demonstrate it. It's evident in the way this team is developing. A young quarterback is protected by a young tackle selected high in the draft. New weapons that fit a fast-paced offensive style were introduced. A robust and steady defense already in place. This doesn't appear to be an accident. Everything appears to be planned. Everything appears to be pointing in a single direction. The contrast is amplified when you hear Barry's speech. One quarterback is the center of attention for the offense. Words that sound like trust are spoken. Words that sound like control are spoken. You hear discussions about system command. That's not typical. Let's observe how language develops. That's the language of future leaders. The seasoned quarterback, on the other hand, receives none of that enthusiasm, advantage, or genuine push. Just cautious, safe language that maintains civility without elevating him in any way. The younger backup quarterback is also put on a slow track. Prioritize learning and development. Don't hurry. Thus, the difference is clear when you take a step back and examine all three at once. One is being molded for the role of the present and the future. One is being gradually developed. One is being cautiously handled without much support from the competition. That is not treating everyone equally. In front of everyone, that structure is already taking shape. Zoom out now to see Cleveland's true actions even more clearly. There is no confusion in this quarterback room. There is no room for anything to happen in this open conflict. This franchise is making progress while maintaining polite and professional public discourse. Due to expenses and money, the Watson situation is a remnant of their past. However, the offense is not run by money. Fit, play, and outcomes all do. And gradually, the burden of the past is being lifted from their speech and development. The general manager's speech has changed. It's evident in who receives praise and who doesn't. Without making a formal announcement just yet, you can see it in the way the future is framed. This is the true story. Not a single quote, not a single sentence, but the entire pattern of decisions. Cleveland is not holding off on making a decision. Everything that is being constructed around this team is moving in the same direction, and the decision is already taking shape in real time. Therefore, the silence surrounding Shedeur Sanders makes perfect sense when you make all the connections. The message was unmistakable, but never loud. In Cleveland, the change is already taking place. If you agree, like and subscribe for more in-depth analyses like